Creative visualization, the keys to the subconscious mind. Access hidden powers. Discover your potential. Learn how to use it to manifest your reality. Creative visualization, an online course for true seekers. Sign up now. Okay, we're going to talk about healing the divine feminine today. And I want you to watch the movie The Mother. Beginning is a little slow, but it's building up towards a climax. And the Mother, obviously, it's about the Great Mother. And what I like about that movie is that it shows you the perspective of the divine feminine on earth. And it lines up with the ancients have been saying in the Gnostic texts and other scriptures about the experience of the feminine energy on earth, whether you want to call her Mother Nature, the Great Mother, the cosmic, the Divine Mother. But really, it's also about the divine feminine energy in us. And if you look at it that way, you'll be able to see the issues that you have within yourself and how it's been played out since you were a child. So healing the divine feminine is really about healing the emotions and the emotional, as we call it, the emotional baggage you have within you. Most people think that they're for the mother, or they're feminists, or they're down to help out. They think they're black power, but yet they're super masculine. They're super afraid to heal their emotions. They hide and deny their emotions. And they're backed up in their energy field with a lot of emotional drama, a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain. So they're really just scared little boys, hurt little boys with a lot of mommy and daddy issues. And what's happening is that the more you choose not to heal these issues, is the more problems you start to have on earth, the more you sink into your lower self. Your lower self, as they call it, is nothing more than those feelings, that emotional baggage of being here, what you took on, but you hide from yourself. You didn't want to face it, but yet it's running your life because it's in the subconscious mind. So just to recap, healing the divine feminine is learning how to have self-acceptance for yourself, especially for your feelings, your emotional traumas, your hurts, your fears, and clearing that out of your system. So before we get into more about that, I'm not going to get too deep into the movie The Mother. I just want you to watch it and use it as a framework to understand her story here and understand what we have been doing to the divine feminine within us. Because we always want to put it on kind of the system, but we don't realize how we're participating in the bondage of the divine feminine by not allowing these emotional aspects of ourselves to heal and not recognizing them. Of course, there's more to it, but that's the critical point that we need to make here. But first, let's try to define some terms and try to demystify what we mean when we say the divine mother, the divine father, God. Because a lot of us have been growing up in a religious mindset, so we tend to think that when we talk about the divine father or the divine mother, we're talking about something outside of us. And that's just part of the religious spell that was placed on us, so that we fell into in becoming more and more human and feeling more and more separated from the divine. So in becoming, and that's really the source of the problem, in coming into a human form, we felt we became more separated from the divine source, to the point where we really believed we were separated, to the point where we believed that something was wrong with us, to the point where we started to believe we needed to be punished. So before religion even came on the scene, we developed a religious mindset, a mindset of seeing God outside of us and us being and us having something wrong with us, and us needing punishment and suffering, and inventing things like hell and heaven and all this stuff. And if you notice, if you go to black churches, we put so much into worshiping. It's almost like we're groveling, like we want to be heard, we want to be let back in because we feel like we're not worthy. People say, oh no, black people just have more energy and emotion. Yes, but look at the way they worship. There's an undercurrent of unworthiness there. There's an undercurrent of feeling that if I just pray hard enough, if I just, shake loud enough or do whatever, then God will seek favor for me and I'll let back in. So there's a whole bunch of ideas that we have to let go of about God, the Godhead, the divine, the all, the source, whatever names we have. And it's important that we start to dismantle these images in our mind, because these are false images. This is what they mean when they talk about not having false idols or false gods. The false idols, these are all occult or secret meanings that symbolize higher spiritual teachings. And what they're talking about is you not creating false images in your mind from being human and responding to these false images as real. You've created little thought forms, little gods, little deities, and one of them is guilt. So there's a series of books that have really helped me in my healing process. And it started with a book called Right Use of Will, written in the 80s by an author named C.N.D. Rohan. And she really goes in on healing from the mother's perspective and what happened between the mother energy and the father energy. And she does it in a story form, in a symbolic form, hoping that you will be able to key in on things and it'll trigger certain emotional issues in you so that you will let it out, you'll express it, you'll let it go. So it's been very difficult for a lot of people to get through and read. And it was difficult for me as well, but I got through to about the 7th book, and they touch a lot on black people and what happened here, what happened to us, our relation with the mother. It's very interesting. I think in more audios I will probably maybe even just read out some key lines from there. But for now, I want you to wrap around your mind that all of us, especially growing up in a religious-based system, we have invented false images of God, of our divine self. And we replaced the divine self with a false image. Now, many people call that just another expression of the ego, and that's correct. The ego, or being, really just an illusionary self that we've given power to take over us, has many forms. And one of these is this God picture that we've created. And although we don't like to admit it, keeping it real, and not even keeping it real, it's in front of your face, most people can see that they don't really have a true love of the divine. They have a fear of God. They have a fear of being punished. They see God as something distant, cold, like some father who's just watching over them, watching their every move. We even created a BS concept called sin, where, if you fart, if you step wrong, anything you do, you're in trouble, you're sin. So, and everywhere you turn, you're constantly doing something bad in which you need to repent from this distant, cold, unloving God who gets angry, storms, you know what I'm saying, and is ready to punish you and burn you alive, or even after death for life, for eternity. Doesn't sound like a God I would want to be around. But people believe this. Intelligent people who are so-called educated, people who are are so-called logical and intelligent, they seem to turn off that part of their brain, and they believe that they are somehow some unworthy being, that there's a God above them that's judging their every move. And this all comes because they don't really understand the hidden spiritual meanings of things, and fell for the symbols, and fell for the outer meanings. And then we had a religious mind that was ready to accept this programming because it was in line with how we started to feel when we came into creation over time and started to forget who we were. So let's define some of these concepts. When we talk about the Father, and a good book on this is called The Hidden Power by Thomas Troward. It was written in 1921. And I don't know much about him or his movement, but they call themselves a New Thought. To me, it sounds like these are individuals who had access to Hermetic principles. Maybe they were Rosicrucians or belonged to certain secret orders. Regardless, they had the mystical understanding of religion and spirituality, which we once had before we went into a deep state of sleep. So this book, I like how they define the God and Christ energy. And I'm gonna just give you some lines, some quotes, so you can see some of the true meanings of what they once meant and how far we've fallen from that concept. So the Father principle, according to them, is the absolute or undifferentiated, universal, infinite intelligence. And that would be applied to the mother. If you think of the great or cosmic mother as the undifferentiated, meaning unseparated, lacking in form, unlimited, unmanifest, so pure potential that hasn't been separated or manifested, and a never-ending stream, that would be the mother principle or the Father principle. And the Son, when they say the Son of God, they're not talking about one person or a hippie-looking person who walked around 2,000 years ago, or the Christ. They're talking, it's symbolic for the principle that comes into matter. The principle, the universal aspect of God that starts to come into separate or looks like separate parts. They called it individualized particular parts. So think about that. You have the universal absolute power, unlimited, limitlessness, and it wants to experience itself as many different parts, many different aspects of itself. And those aspects of itself, those parts which are you, me, and everyone else, are then referred to as the Son. You get it? It's symbolic as the Son. Not the physical sun, but because it has taken on a more defined form. It is not the whole of the ocean. You look at it as there's an ocean, and drops of that ocean, in a sense, would be the sons or the daughters of that ocean. But it's the same ocean, so it's the same power, yet in a particular form. And this is what lines up in the Bible when, the story of Jesus, when he says, I and my Father are one. No one gets through me but through the Father. And says the same light that's in every man is in me, and you are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. And everything I do, you can do too. They also say in the Bible, Christ has to be formed in you. So they're all alluding to this idea that within you is this universal, infinite, unconditional, loving presence. And you identifying with that presence and not your ego is what transforms you back into the Christ or the Son. The Son is another way of saying your inheritance. So by taking on the identity of the Son, you've now reclaimed your true identity as being one with the Father and the Mother, or one with the universal source, Most people walking around have another identity. They think they're human, they think they're this body, and they've lost their identity of being this infinite power. So again, to recap, you are the same infinite power that is in everything, that originated everything, is in you and is you, and is experiencing itself as you. And the ancients just called it the Son. Hence being a child of God, meaning you are the expression of that infinite source. You're not separate from it. You're not less than. You are not trying to work your way back up. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything bad. You are just that infinite power in a particular form of individualized nature, expressing and trying to understand itself. Hence why we call the Son. So I'm going to read out some other things. I mentioned that it's as they always say, the recognition of your true identity is what gives you that power, as they talk about in religion, is Christ. Okay? It's you recognizing and disconnecting yourself out of your human or ego mind is what gives you that, or returns to you that power, that you are that same infinite God force. Okay? And the same thing applies to the mother. But the mother, it's just two sides of the same force. You know, down here we call it polarity. So the father and the mother are the unifying principle. Okay? And the Son is that unifying principle in different forms. So it's the same principle. So when it's in the father state or the mother state, you're in the ocean. You're not separate. When you're in the Son, you have taken on an appearance of form of separation. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that and that's why they say there's one Son of God, because we are all one. We are all that same one infinite source, just having this illusion of being separated. That's why there's only one Son. There could only be one Son because there's only one unifying force. So I had to get this out the way. Another way I wanted to swing it was, I like what they say about the mother. The mother being, well, I'm adding this part in, would be as I said, the unmanifest potential. The father, they call it the ideal, or would have the vision. The Son is the concrete aspect of that vision. So if you look at it in stages where the mother is the originating source or power, the father is the molder of that source or power, and the Son is that manifestation of that power into physical form. It's 3 stages. It's like it's going down from unmanifest to manifest to taking on an actual form and experiencing that form. And if we see it as cosmic forces and principles, then you'll get a better understanding of it. The mother, the father's role, and the Son being our role here, even though they're all one and the same. Now, in the movie The Mother, a couple things stood out. A couple themes stood out. And one of those themes was that the father, as they depicted in the movie, was always trying to create his book. So they threw in some religious stuff in there, but he was trying to create. And the mother was kind of letting him do his thing, not trying to interfere, but just maintaining the environment and setting up the environment so the father could create his vision. And what that was showing you is that the mother is the source of everything, symbolic of your subconscious mind. She's the womb, which is the womb of your mind, as they call it. So she maintained and supplied the raw material to manifest things. But yet the father gets all the praise, or the masculine side got all the praise, got all the accolades. And the movie was quite funny because it showed you how in the process of this kind of creation, everybody just ignored the mother. The mother was completely ignored for her power and her role. The feminine was then demonized. So she went from being ignored and dismissed to disrespected to demonized to then abused. So this is also symbolic of the experience of the divine feminine on earth coming into a human reality and being corrupted, as you'll say, by humanity, being corrupted by, or really the ego. So our power coming into a body and being seduced by the ego and then overthrown by it. And then to the point where she was almost held in bondage and held down. And I found that so interesting because it mirrored what some of the ancient texts say, some of the Gnostic texts say, and in some of this channeled information in Right Use of Will. And one of the key things that they mentioned in those books when it comes to healing the divine feminine is that we have been denying our emotions. We've been denying and hiding our emotional baggage, which has been called our lower self. And it's these denials of it has caused the greatest suffering. And I'm not talking about racism here. I'm not talking about white. I'm not talking about any of this stuff. I'm talking about before any of that came into existence, denying our emotions and accumulating this ancient emotional baggage while we became more and more human has caused the most suffering for black people and has actually hurt the mother. And the movie was again affirming that the mother has been denied a voice, denied recognition, and denied any type of presence. And that was really a reflection of what we've been doing to ourselves. Denying ourselves, denying our emotions, denying that this feminine part of us, and then demonizing it, and then judging it. And you see throughout the movie how she was judged, demonized, not even heard, and disrespected. So I love how they flipped it and they made it into a story form, and they mirrored. The guy must have read some of these books because it completely mirrored a lot of the information that was relayed in these books about the mother and her process of healing. And in these books, it says plainly that your problem is your denial and lack of self-acceptance with the parts of yourself that you do not like and you do not want to face. That your refusal to go in there is actually hurting the divine feminine. So when you think you're for the divine feminine, you're actually hurting the divine feminine because you are not allowing yourself to accept those parts of you. You're not allowing it to come into the light. It's still it's in the dark, and you're not allowing it to come up and get some fresh air and clear it out of your system. And one of the most dangerous things they talk about in those books is the concept of guilt. And I did an audio on guilt already. I'm going to repeat some things about guilt. One of the things people don't understand, that guilt itself is like something that was created down here. It is a complete illusion, like everything else, but it's an illusion that we gave power. And it's an extremely dangerous thing because the more guilt because guilt demands one thing, and that's punishment. When people have guilt, they're secretly saying that something's wrong with them, that they've done something wrong, and that they need punishment. Now, they're not telling themselves this consciously, but they're doing it when they deny their emotions. And information keeps saying that the minute you deny your emotions, guilt is created. You feel guilty about what you're feeling. You feel fear, first of all, and then you feel guilt. So healing your emotions is the removing of guilt. It even goes so far as saying guilt has become God on earth. It's an entity unto itself. And if it's an entity, if it's a God, that must mean it feeds, it influences people, and it demands sacrifice. I want you to think about that. This guilt has been one of the main predators on attacking the feminine energy, because healing of the feminine energy would mean removing guilt, which would mean which would mean removing this entity off earth. Such an interesting passage in there. It said that if you freed yourself from guilt, you'd be able to transform your body into light and leave. Very interesting. This is the power. That guilt chains people down here. It's what keeps you more and more human. It is one of the most powerful, unhealthy emotions. I don't even know if it is an emotion or what it is, but things that we carry. And black people have been carrying this guilt and this shame. And if you were hearing my words, you heard that guilt draws punishment to you. It demands that something's wrong with you. So how does this relate to God? Well, it gets really deep. Because when we separated from, or thought we separated from the infinite, or left the mind of God, as we appeared to have left the mind of God, we created these things like guilt, shame. Maybe we want to experience it. I don't know, but we created it. And in creating it, we created a false image of the Creator, of the Father, and of the Mother. And the more we went to sleep is the more we began to play out this role. The deeper we got into it, the more we started to believe it, become it, and live it. To the point where we really started to invent things like God doesn't like us, God must be against us, for us to be experiencing this stuff on earth here. We're left out of creation, we're rejected, we're abandoned. Now, one of the things they say that's really deep is your experiences with your mother and your father, and your relationship with your mother and father mirror your relationship with the cosmic mother and the cosmic father. Again, we're talking about the greater aspect of you. But your relationship, how you feel about your father, mirrors how you feel about the divine father, the masculine principle, the greater aspect of you. Some deep shit. Now, if you look at black people and just look at the music, just study the music and study the culture, you'll see that in the music you hear rappers and you hear different people talk about they never grew up with their father. You know, F him, he left the family and left the mother alone to take care of herself and hold down 2-3 jobs, and the mother is always suffering, the mother is always in pain, and the mother is always having the whole load on her, or the mother's always broken down, something's wrong with her. That is always depicted. It's even depicted in some of the more recent cultural TV shows we see currently, like Scandal and Empire. In Scandal, we see the same issues being played out. If you understand the message that they're trying to communicate to you, it's really us trying to communicate to ourselves. You have Olivia, who represents the son, the daughter, of the infinite, all of us, and you have the mother who's locked up, right? She's in bondage. So the divine feminine, Kundalini energy, it's locked up, it's in bondage. And you have the father, They don't get along. He's kind of distant. They got issues. He seems like he's cold, uncaring, ruthless. And it's that same story retold over and over again. If you look in Empire, it's the same thing. You have the mother, she was locked up. You had the father. They even call it Empire, and they even call him Lucius, like Lucifer. And the father is like a bad guy, doesn't get along with his sons. His sons even try to kill him, right? Abandoned the mother, left the mother to rot in jail while he's living it up. It's the same theme. And I want you to look within your own family and your own experience with your mother and your father and understand that they're just symbols from your unconscious mind of how you feel about your cosmic origin. I'm going to repeat that. Your parents are nothing more than symbols of how you feel about your cosmic origin. Was your father around? If he was around, was he an asshole? Like, was he distant? Was he cold? Was he unloving? Because what happened was you got programmed as a child from your experience with your parents. Did something happen to your mother? Did you see your mother always broken down, abandoned, alone, angry, rageful, whatever? Right? You, unknowingly as a child, were taking in those images, and we're programmed with these images. Well, the truth is, you already had these images within you, and your parents were just roles, were just actors playing roles for you to see what you need to heal. That's actually the real thing. I told you it's going to get real deep. So your mom, whatever experience you have with your mom, or whatever you've seen her go through, understand that's what you attribute to the divine mother, to the feminine. And you need to heal that. You need to heal these emotions. Whatever happened with your father. I have my brother till this day has issues with our father. And growing up, I had plenty of issues with my father. He fit the mold of that evil character that I thought was negative against me or didn't give a shit about me. So I believed that, and that took its toll on me in my subconscious mind until I had to go in there and reprogram that. Today, we're cool. And I don't even remember negative memories. Like those, what starts to happen is when you do the healing, negative memories start to fade and you start to actually remember good times, or you start to have more of a positive image around your parents. And that's what you're looking for. When you have anger towards your father or your mother, if you have shame, if you have guilt, if you have whatever it is, you need to heal that. And how do you heal that? By accepting those emotions, allowing them to come up, facing them, feeling them, expressing them. Expressing them meanings you got to cry, you got to cry. You got to feel the hurt, you got to let it out. You feel the rage, you got to scream. You don't take it out on people. You express it to yourself. This is healing the feminine energy within you. And this is restoring within you the true connection, because you can't, that's why they say you can't come to the Father unless you go through the Son. What that means is you can't connect to your infinite self as a human with your emotional baggage, because you're still seeing the infinite in a false way. You're still connecting in a false way. You're so angry, secretly angry at your father, angry at God, angry at the mother, or whatever. So to come as the Christ, or identify yourself as the Christ, it means you've cleared your emotional baggage. You've restored the truth within you. You restored your innocence, their innocence, that this was all a freaking illusion anyway. And that's what happens after a long, I don't want to say long, but it just happens after a process of healing, that you restore, they say, your true sight. And you reclaim your true identity. And that's when they talk about you get your inheritance into the kingdom. And I know many people have spoke about it, but I really enjoy that story too of Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and his father. And that role is really taken from the Bible with the prodigal son, how he leaves home to be treated like shit, to experience himself as a human, even though he, in his father's kingdom, he had everything. He had everything he ever wanted, but he wanted to experience what it would be like to not have everything so that he can discover something new. So he came to Queens and he got a job and he got treated like shit. And then, so basically that was just a symbol of us. We left the kingdom, our Father's kingdom, meaning our infinite self, and took on an individual self, and then got lost or almost trapped in a human form, forgetting who we were. All the while, we started to take on these things like guilt, like shame, like fear. And having those emotions, we started to create a reality that was not real. We started to invent a reality and invent these false images of God or the divine, to the point where black people, deep down inside, they really feel that they hate God or they fear God. Which, how can you hate or fear something and understand that you are one with it? That means you hate and fear yourself, right? So these are things that we need to heal within ourselves. And again, if you see the series Scandal and you see the series Empire and you watch it through this lens, you'll understand that it's speaking to us, right? We're speaking to ourselves, whether through our music, through our childhood, through these shows. Everything is showing us that we need to heal this past that we had with our parents. And that's a good way to help us reclaim our true inheritance. That's a good way for you to clear out the illusions in your mind so that you can reconnect back to your infinite power, to unchain yourself from this false reality. And that means getting rid of these false ideas of God. And you know what, I teach this as well. And I've worked with people to help them. There's lots of tools you can use to help you do that. And I know there's other people that do the same thing as well. So I recommend you hook up with somebody you reach out to people to get this healing. Because don't front and fake like you're doing the work, or you're pro black, and yet you haven't done this work, or you're not doing this work. Because you're actually hurting the mother in you. You're actually working against the divine feminine with you. You're actually working, to put it plain, you're actually working against the black woman in you. So you're not really for the black woman. You're actually working against the black woman, holding her down, holding her back. That's what's symbolized by her being in bondage all the time, locked up, thrown away. They show you in the movie that she's denied. Ain't nobody hearing her. What does that mean? That means that you denied yourself. You denied listening to the feminine within you, to healing your emotional baggage. You judged it. And they talk a lot about that in those books, that judgment is the issue. Right? We've judged that these emotions are wrong or bad. We don't want to face them. No, you got to face them. If you got to, you're in fear, you got to face it. You got to feel it. You have hatred, you got to feel it. You got to allow that to express itself. One of the biggest things that is going to help you, and I know it's helped me as well, is understanding that when you allow yourself to feel emotions, it doesn't mean you're becoming those emotions. And that's a big thing that they talk about in the book, is that people fear that feeling these emotions, like they're going to be consumed by them, or they're going to become them. You're not going to become these emotions. These emotions, they'll pass through you, and they often have gifts for you, because they reveal things, beliefs you've had, judgments you've made. It gives you information. helps you understand why you do things today, why your relationships don't work out today, why you having money issues today, why you got sick, why you have these tendencies and these habits. You think you just have them. No, it comes back to your experience with your parents, what you were programmed to believe about yourself and about them. And it's individual, it's detailed for everybody, but there are universal themes. And these universal themes are: we came out of our kingdom, our infinite self, that identity, and we thought we became human. And we created a lot of guilt, a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt because of that. These are the universal themes. How it plays out individually for you and your family is what you need to heal. It's the work you need to do. For me, it was issues with my father. For you, it might be something with your mother. For someone else, it might be a different relationship with their father. Whatever it is, you need to heal that. Some people will say, well, I don't even know my father. How can I heal that? The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. That's what's amazing about it. So you can do healing and restore a wonderful image between you and your parents, even without knowing them. Yes, it takes some work, but you can do it, and it will respond. So I hope you got something from this audio. I'm going to post some more audios about, I'll probably do another one about the Divine Father and get a little bit more into that. And but do the healing. Contact me if you need some support. I do have courses on healing unconscious patterns, and I'm going to start putting that out, and I want to hear from you because I know y'all need it, because I needed it, and it's something that I had to do. And I think I was talking about my brother, and I'll just finish this. My brother, he, till this day, everything that has happened to him leads back to his father, his lack of relationship with his father. And the funny thing is, he's just like his father. The same thing he accuses our father of, he's doing, or he's acting like. And when I tell him that, he gets upset. It wasn't until one day when our father actually told him, the issue me and you have is because you remind me of me. And I'm like, I told you. So even you could be a grown person in your 40s or in your 50s, if you haven't healed this stuff from your childhood, please do. Use this lifetime to clear up this emotional baggage. Free yourself of that, and you'll be working with the divine feminine. You'll be working with the divine mother in you. You'll be moving along with the greater movement that's happening right now, which is healing of our emotions. All right? So contact me for classes. I also do a course on creative visualization, learning how to manifest things, learning how to clear things out of your mind, learning how to manipulate reality with the mind. And as well, I offer a course on healing unconscious patterns. I do another course as well on the mind and magic through the mystical school of thought. So I got some stuff going on. If you're interested, hit me up, and we can set something up where you can join class. Take care.